My name is Barb Person, and I'm from the St. Louis Park League of Women Voters, and we're really glad that you came out this morning on this beautiful spring morning. So thanks for coming. Of course, the whole reason that we're here this morning is to get a preview of the new website, Your Voice, Your Vote. Do I have that right? I oftentimes reverse that. Your Vote, Your Voice. There, I did it. Yeah. So anyway, I think you'll all be really interested in the new website that they've spent the League of Women Voters Minnesota has spent the last year on creating. And so this morning we are lucky to have Susan Sheridan Tucker, the Executive Director of League of Women Voters Minnesota, with us. And I'm happy to introduce her to you. Susan joined League of Women Voters Minnesota as the Executive Director in October of 2013. And she has spent most of her 27-year career in the nonprofit arena. A native New Yorker, Susan she earned her bachelor's degree in English literature and political science from New York University and her master's in urban planning from Hunter College. Susan has worked on affordable housing projects, master plans, community building, strategic planning, and nonprofit change management. She's also, another skill of hers is cat herding, she tells me, that she obtained while working with Minnesota entrepreneurs and has found it quite useful in her league work as well. She is active in her church community where social justice issues and pastoral care have been her primary focus. She is an elder in her church and serves on its governance board. Susan is a former city commissioner for Edina Energy and Environmental Board, too. So we're very lucky to have her in League. She and her husband live in Edina along with their cat. In their spare time, they enjoy theater and, when able, exploring new cultures with their travels. In fact, she's leaving shortly on a really nice trip. Their two adult daughters are exploring their passions in storytelling, one through film and the other in radio journalism. We are really happy to have her here today. Susan Sheridan Tucker.
Thanks, Barb. It really is a pleasure to be with you. I think shortly after I started, this was one of the first groups I came to visit when we were talking about the Bee campaign so long ago. So it's really a pleasure to be with you this morning. And before we get into the new website, we've been busy beavers at the state office. And many of you know that we also constructed a new website for the state office for our business. And so the image that you see on the screen is one of the images from our new website. And I just want to, if you haven't spent any time going through this, I just want to quickly walk you through. So we've laid out what our positions are under where we stand, and under each page you'll find just short bits of what the League's positions are, and then a number of resources. And the premise behind this website is that it's meant to be a resource tool, not just for League members, but for our community, so that we're telling our story to the overall community when they come and visit our site. And then, why League? Some of the things that we do. And then we've changed this because of the election season. So we've changed this tab to read elections and voting. And this Take Action tab will bring you to a tool that is new to us, and one that we think is going to be very effective. But it allows us to communicate directly to our legislators. So you can, if you're on our Action Alert mailings, this will be where you're connected to in order to follow through on those action alerts. But really, at any time, if you want to write a letter to your legislator, federally or state, you can come into this portion of the website and send a letter. So just know that that's available to you. And then as the election season progresses, this page will become much more populated. We did have a bit of information on the caucuses, which we have since removed. But we want to make this a landing page in which those in the community that are looking for information about where to vote, how to register, how to get an absentee ballot, that they kind of have a one-stop shop here. And we'll just provide the various links, mostly to the Secretary of State's site, which is quite excellent if you haven't reviewed it recently. They've done a lot of updating as well. And then engagement and inclusion. This is where you'll find some of the information on Luncheon and Council, the programming that we did during our state convention this past June. And then another feature we added was that every local league now has a page. And we're trying to encourage local leagues to populate these pages. So, in fact, I think we have, did we do a West Metro? No. I don't know if the West Metro League would like a page, but we certainly can add that. But, so let me just, I'll go right up to the top here. So Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids. It's an opportunity, again, if people are searching for a local league, that this is your promo page. You know, just tell a little bit about yourselves, what kind of work you're focusing on in your community. We have opportunities to put your voter so that people can read those, and then just, you know, list of officers, what communities you serve. And then each league should have an administrator that has access to the Gmail accounts that we set up, and then you can load these calendars. So again, it's for the wider community. Even if you have your own website as a local league, this is just another venue to get your message out. So we encourage you to use that as well. And then under the media, of course, is news items that we put up and various publications that either the league has produced, or different white papers that can, you know, focus on our issues. And I'll just bring you back to the home page. So if you scroll down, top media events will be featured in this section. And these will change fairly regularly. So, and again, it's meant to be a community outreach as well as a local league outreach. So, and as you're working your way through it and getting to know it better, if you have suggestions, we're always open to feedback. We've gotten some good suggestions from individuals, and we've added that to the site. So just keep that in mind. So now I'll move to the topic of the morning. And this website is called Your Vote, Your Voice. And this has been a project that was funded by the Joyce Foundation, who has primarily been our benefactor for the work that we do in the community. We were asked by the Joyce Foundation to consider a project that would help engage young people, young voters. And initially, the project that we thought about was actually going to be more of an art display. If any of you went to the I Have a Name exhibit that we did last year at the Landmark Center, we had full-size photos, and then the story relating to individuals who were seeking a better life in the United States, trying to leave Central America and Mexico from life situations that were quite abusive. So that was the initial thought. And then as we had this conversation with the Joyce Foundation, they said, why don't you consider a website? So I was like, okay, we'll consider a website. Having really no experience in building websites, but it was like, sure, we can do that. So we went for it. And this project has really had quite a transitional experience on our office, on my staff, in the work that we do amongst the community. And it, I think, has brought us to a much better place than what we initially thought this project would be about and what it can offer. So essentially, it's the opportunity to convey the long history of voter disenfranchisement and to tell it through the voices directly affected. And you'll see that when you come to the page, to the home page, we're going to be looking at the past, the present, and the future. Well, the past and the present, we certainly can provide information. We've got lots of, and we'll walk through that. But the future has yet to be written. So when you get to the future page, you're not going to find much. And I'll tell you what our plans are for that going forward. But I'd like to play this short video that was produced. And this represents a group of students who worked with Liz Hahn, who was the project manager of this project, and having conversations with young people about how they want to be civically engaged, why is voting important to them, what are they looking forward to when they get to be voting age. And so I'm just going to play this.
Your vote, your voice.
Your vote, your voice.
Your vote, your voice.
Well, it's powerful when young people get together to talk about issues because they have new ideas and new perspectives on how things should go.
As a young person, I feel that we are the future as well as now. We have a lot to contribute.
I actually got involved when I was 12, and the first organization I started working with was my Liberian community, talking about immigration and fighting for the right to live here, and so that other kids my age wouldn't have to one day wake up and fear that they are going to get taken away from a place that they've called home for so many years.
You can make a difference. It doesn't, matter how old you are. And there are people in this world that are more than eager to help you, kind of have a voice in the first place. For women in my family, it's always been an importance to vote. They always tell the story of my great-grandmother. In the 1930s, Puerto Rico said, okay, women can vote. And her mother was very traditional, was just like, no, that's a men's job, you can't vote. And she jumped onto someone's truck, and she kept jumping on different trucks to different towns just so her mother couldn't keep track of where she was, and she voted for the first time.
I think it's very important for us to learn the history of voting rights because it's great to know where we get our rights from, and I think it's great to learn from the past in order to see what we can do now in the present.
When we grow up, we're going to be most directly affected by the changes that are being made now because we're going to have to live through them. All of the older generations, they're going to be long gone when the stuff that we make today is starting to affect us.
And it's important to have the right elected officials that can help change or shift the way society is.
If you're able to vote, it's really important for you to register to vote because you're not just voting for yourself, but you're also voting for people who are your age that wish they had the opportunity to vote, because no matter what, we live here and everything that happens here affects us.
Explore this website, see what it can offer for you. There's a lot of really cool aspects about the history where you can learn and know where to go forward and see what the past has done and what you can do to affect the present and the future.
Even if you're not able to vote yet, you can still get involved.
When people speak out and join together and get into groups and communities that feel the same way they do, they can really get their voice heard.
So I hope you're inspired by that, because we certainly are. These are the faces of Minnesotans. This is our future, and we as an organization need to be part of their future, and we need to be doing everything that we can in order to engage them civically, and to help them, guide them through the process of what it means to be civically engaged. And so the purpose of this website is to, it's focused on high school. It's a high school curriculum. And our intent is to take this out to the local high schools. We've had some communication with the St. Paul high school teachers. We showed them an earlier draft of this website, and they provided us some very meaningful feedback with regard to reading levels. We spent a lot of time actually rewriting some of the material so that it would be appropriate for students who have language challenges, that they're not native speakers. So we made a real effort to define words that we take for granted, that people know. And I'll show you some examples of how we tackled those issues. A little bit more about the process. We've been working on this project since October of 2014, and in the first 6 months we spent a lot of time developing the partner relationships. We have 11 organizations around the community that contributed to the content of this site, and so we worked with them to create a working model for the partnerships, having conversations, and dealing, frankly, with the tensions that exist within the community around white privilege. And I'm not sure if that's a term that you're all familiar with, but you know, the League is considered a white privileged group. Even though women certainly have experienced sexism and have been discriminated against, their white privilege does prevail, and it's a concept that we have to get comfortable with and negotiate with other communities. And this is all about the work of being culturally competent, and you'll hear me use that term a lot going forward in the work that we're doing. It's about negotiating relationships across cultures to create bridges so that we're empathetic towards one another, that we don't necessarily know what it's like to be in that person's skin, but that we're not passing judgment, that we're creating true collaborative relationships, which means that we have to give up some of our power that we've had. We've had the privilege of sitting at a lot of tables where decisions can be made, and communities of color have not necessarily been at those tables. And so this is an effort on the part of the League of Women Voters Minnesota to recommit to that level of inclusion, and that this is work that has to be very intentional and takes time and energy and commitment. And so we want to utilize this website as an opportunity to engage in those conversations. So in addition to, well, let me walk through. I'm going to show you some of the website. So the construction of the website is past, present, future. And each large section has a landing page and just gives a quick overview of what we're trying to accomplish. Then there are what we call books. So when we click on communities, we have sections, curriculum, relating to all of these communities: American Indians and Alaska Natives, Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, Latina and Hispanic Americans, people of African heritage, people with disabilities, white people, and women. So I'll show you the women's section. And again, just a quick overview. You'll see that many of these pages just have, they're not long, they're not meant to be long snippet, you know, it's just to give an overview. This is not going to be a comprehensive history. But this is the only site that we know of that exists that puts past and present together and is as inclusive about voting rights. So we're really excited that this is going to be a place in which it will be a resource for high school teachers, for new citizens, for people who really want to get a better understanding of voting right history. So then women in early history. So in each chapter, you'll see very similar kinds of format. We set the stage. So we want to put the story into its context. And then you'll see these little boxes here. Rather than sending people off to another page to learn the definition of a word, all they have to do is hover. And it really enables the flow to continue. So if somebody doesn't know what this term is, it's right there. And so those are all, you know, highlighted. So we have the setting page, the setting page. Then we talk about the effects of the history in Minnesota. And then you have the opportunity to go into it more deeply. And then once you've gone through the chapters, each section will have a reflection page. And we see these building as we get feedback from the community. One of the aspects of this site will be feedback forms. We'll have one specifically for high school teachers, one for students, and one for community. And we're hoping that students will buy into this site so they feel like it's a place in which they can contribute. And I'll talk more about that in terms of the future pages. But we'll be seeking additional content. So if within the Native community, if there are leaders in their community that have not been represented on this site that need to be represented, we want to hear that. We want to get that information, and we'll install that on the site. And then you'll see this section throughout all the pages, intersectionality. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with that term? No? Okay. So I'm going to read the definition so I get it correct. But it's the interconnected nature of social characterizations categorizations, such as race, class, gender, as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. So essentially, it's where, where the intersections occur on a variety of levels. And each of us has experienced some kind of ism at some point in our lives. And this is the point in which they intersect. And then no curriculum would be without discussion questions. So each section has some questions for students students and teachers to engage in. And then this is what took a tremendous amount of time. This site has a lot of sources on it, and I can tell you it takes a lot of time to make sure they're correct, and that they make sense, they're relevant, but just the exercise of loading all this on was very time-consuming. But we hope it becomes a place in which high school students, particularly for their History Day projects or other classroom projects, this will be a resource for them. And I see it as a place in which all local leagues can, choose a chapter and have conversation with your community or within a unit meeting. We will be offering some training as we launch the site. Liz Hahn will be available to make presentations along with you. So, we'll make that available as well. But the idea is really to provide a wide network of outreach for this site. All right, and then I just go home. So, literally coming soon. We're still working on this, even in terms of what it's going to look like, let alone the content. But some of the ideas that we have are that we'd like to gather those students who were on that video and others and engage them to help us write the content for the future. So that if they're producing papers or videos, or if they have photography, or they're writing music, or their self-expression around the voting rights, that we'd like to be able to add this to the site. And then as issues change, as legislation passes, that we will load that onto the site as well. I'm going to just go through the present site with you. So we list issues. So these are, so age, felon disenfranchisement, military service, new barriers to voting, U.S. territories. I'm sure many of you were not aware of the barriers for U.S. territories. It was really fascinating. And I think all of us, as we were working on this project, learned quite a bit. I won't play this now, but this is spot on. Spot on. And some of his stuff is a little inappropriate at times in terms of his language. This one is very usable. And because this site is for, high schoolers, we did have to be careful, about language. We want to be respectful. But in your own spare time, scan his work, because he does amazing research on voting rights issues, and it's really incredible. So there you go. So you'll find that as you go through this site that not only do we have factual content, written content, but we're using different media sources so that it becomes relevant and easily accessible to a wide variety of audiences. And people can pick and choose as they scan the site, you know, how they want to experience it. This is kind of where we're at this point. There's one other piece I want to show you. Let's see. This out a little bit. We also developed timelines. And I'll just show you this one. And this really does just provide a quick overview based on critically important dates in history as it pertains to that particular community. And of course, there's some overlapping, the intersectionality that occurs within different communities. So I hope our intent is to, it's in test mode right now. We have circulated it to our partner organizations, and we have released it to local leagues also to look at, and I'll give you the test site after we finish this morning. But it will be hard launched on April 28th. And the URL will be yourvoteyourvoicemn.org. And that'll be effective as of April 28th. So with that, I guess I'll take some questions, or?
If people have questions, would they please come up to the mic in the back here, please? The question was, who are the partner organizations that you've been working with?
I will put that page right up. So ARC, one of the, we do have a section on disabilities, and one of the things that we hope to achieve if we can get further funding is to make the website absolutely accessible to people with disabilities. We've done the minimum at this point based on what resources we have available, but we know that there are a lot more that we could do in terms of transcribing the videos and just making it more accessible to those that are either blind or deaf, but we just didn't have the resources to be able to do that. So these are our partner organizations: Asian American Organizing Project, CAPI, Catholic Charities, HASUR, Jewish Community Action, Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs, and the Minnesota State Council on Disability. State Voices as well, and MPIRG, and of course the Joyce Foundation.
Have you made an effort to reach the Native American community?
We have. I would say it is not one of our strongest sections at this point, but we do represent the Native American community, and we're absolutely wanting to expand on this section. And again, this is about building relationships. We have not had strong relationships with Native Americans in the past. And so this is part of our work in terms of becoming a more culturally competent organization. And again, I see this as a foundation piece in which we can engage in those conversations. Any other questions?
How are you tracking the traffic of people looking at the website and the feedback?
Every page will be Google Analytics, so we will be able to measure how many clicks each page is getting. Right now, the site does not have the official feedback forms on it, but it will. And so those forms will collect information about, very basic information about the individual, and there'll be opportunity for them to relay their comments. And so we'll be paying close attention to those feedback forms. And I do have a feedback form that I can send you the link to. Maybe, I don't know how you distribute. If you have a distribution list, I'll make sure you get the link for that feedback form. And really would love to hear from you before the hard launch. If there are things that seem to be missing, or you're having issues with the navigation, we want to know what your experience is on the site. You know, we've been so close to this thing for a long time. It's hard sometimes to, you know, always be objective. So it's good to have good other sets of eyes looking at it and letting us know what changes need to be made.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I just want to, you know, give you kudos for doing it. But you were spot on with that John Oliver. The first time I saw that was my 19-year-old son has been sending me his stuff for the last 6 months on voting rights. Oh, when you did voter ID, you were right. You know, John Oliver. So, I mean, connecting with the younger generation,
Right.
That is how you do it. So I think, great job.
Thanks. Thank you. Did you have a question?
Could you repeat, please, how we find the site when it goes live?
We'll certainly be publishing it, but it's Your Vote, Your Voice, MN.org.
Thank you.
And right now, it's not live, so just so you know that. This is still in testing mode. Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Thanks so much, Susan. We're really happy that you were able to come and show this to us.
My
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah.
We're excited about it.
Yeah,
We've
it
been
is really
working
exciting.
very hard on this, and we're really pleased with it. So.
And this program is being taped by our cable guy here at St. Louis Park, and it will be loaded on YouTube. So when that happens, I'll send the message to all the members of West Metro Alliance so that they can notify their members, put it in the newsletter, you know, get it really out there. So I think that will be very useful. We'd like to spread the word about this. We were hoping to have just a packed room here, but you know how that works on a pretty Saturday morning. So anyway, we will have some announcements after the program is over. So I would like to thank Susan for coming, and stay tuned. Thanks so much.